The night sky of the alien world glowed faint green, filled with drifting dust and lightning that never touched the ground. Elias Grayson's shuttle lay broken in the middle of a dark valley. Smoke rose from it, carrying the sharp smell of burning metal. He pressed his hand on the wound on his side and looked up at the sky full of stars he did not recognize. His communication link was dead. No signal, no map, no backup. He was alone on a planet ruled by a hostile empire that hated his kind. He tried to move toward the wreckage to gather his pack when he heard a faint sound. A soft groan, almost a whisper, carried by the wind. Elias froze. There were stories of creatures on this planet that could mimic voices to lure prey. Still, the sound of pain was human enough to make him walk toward it. Step by step, he followed the trail through tall silver grass until he saw her. The alien lay half buried near the edge of the crash site. Her armor cracked open, blood like molten silver glowing faintly under the moonlight. Her breathing was slow, uneven. Her skin was pale blue, and strange markings glowed faintly across her neck. Elias had never seen one of her kind up close. She was from the Velari Dominion, sworn enemies of humanity. He stood still, torn between fear and instinct. His orders had been simple: never engage with Velari soldiers. But looking at her bleeding body, he remembered the years he had spent saving lives in the medical corps. She was dying, and he could not walk away. He knelt beside her and opened his medical kit. The nanobots inside the injector hissed softly. He knew they were not made for alien biology, but they might stabilize her long enough to survive. Her eyelids flickered when he touched her shoulder. He spoke softly, "Stay still. You are hurt." She tried to speak but only gasped, the strange sound almost a song. When he pressed the injector to her wound, the nanobots entered her bloodstream. Her body tensed, then shivered violently. Elias tried to hold her down as blue light spread through her veins. Her eyes shot open, bright like molten glass. She looked directly at him, her voice shaking. "Human, you should not be here." Elias's heart skipped. The way she said human was not just a word, it was disbelief, fear, and something else. Her kind had wiped out human colonies centuries ago. To them, humans were gone, extinct. Yet here he was, touching one of their warriors, keeping her alive. "Easy," he said, his voice calm but low. "You are safe. I am not here to harm you." She tried to rise but failed. The pain twisted her expression. "You do not understand," she whispered. "If they find you, they will burn this whole place." Her gaze moved to the dark horizon where red flares flashed in the sky. "My squad, they are coming." Elias looked back at his destroyed shuttle. There was no way he could run. "Then we hide," he said. The alien shook her head, confusion in her eyes. "Why help me?" He hesitated, then answered quietly, "Because you were bleeding." For a moment, silence filled the valley. Only the wind moved the tall grass around them. The alien studied him with eyes that no longer looked like those of an enemy. She reached for his hand weakly, her fingers trembling. Her skin was cold and smooth, her pulse faint. "Your touch," she whispered, "it burns. Your blood, it fights mine." Elias saw the faint blue veins under her skin turning silver, spreading from where his nanobots had entered her body. It was working, but differently. He had no idea what that meant. He helped her sit up, wrapping a bandage across her chest armor. "I am Sarathia," she said after a moment, her voice weaker now. "Soldier of the Ninth Order." "Elias," he replied, fastening the bandage. "Field medic, United Earth Fleet, or what's left of it." She blinked slowly, as if trying to recall an old legend. "Earth, that name is forbidden in our records." A cold gust of wind passed. Elias looked up at the faint glow moving across the distant hills. Search drones, scanning the terrain. He grabbed her hand. "We need to move, now." Sarathia tried to stand, her legs unsteady. Elias supported her weight. Together, they walked into the ruins beyond the valley. The ground beneath them was littered with fragments of strange stone and old metal, covered in moss that shimmered in the dark. The air smelled of rain and old electricity. Every step echoed through the empty field. Somewhere behind them, the sound of engines grew louder. Sarathia winced, pressing her hand to her chest. "They will not stop," she said. "If they find me with you, they will kill us both." Elias tightened his grip on her arm. "Then we better not let them." Lightning cracked above them, and for a brief second the landscape lit up, the outline of ancient towers half buried in the ground. Sarathia looked at them and froze. "This place," she whispered. "It should not exist." Elias glanced at her. "What do you mean?" She did not answer. Instead, she pulled him toward the shadow of a crumbled wall. When the drones passed overhead, their blue light scanned the surface but missed them by inches. Elias held his breath until the hum faded into the distance. Only then did she turn to him again. "If the others see this place, they will destroy it." "And you," she said, her voice unsteady. "You must not touch anything here." Elias frowned, confused. "Why?" "Because," she said, her gaze fixed on the ruins, "this world remembers things that even my empire fears. And now it has seen a human." The night grew colder. Elias felt a strange pulse under his feet, as if the ground itself was alive. Far above, lightning twisted into patterns that almost looked like symbols. Sarathia looked up with wide eyes. "It is waking," she whispered. "And it started when you arrived." Elias stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in. He had come here by accident, but something in the air told him it was no accident at all. The planet itself had been waiting, and now it knew a human had returned. The night stretched long as Elias and Sarathia made their way through the ruins. Every sound in the distance felt closer than it should have been, and every flicker of light could have been a drone scanning for heat signatures. The wind carried the metallic scent of ancient machinery buried under the dirt. The deeper they went, the more the ruins started to feel alive, walls humming faintly, air vibrating with an energy that was not natural. Sarathia leaned against him, her steps uneven. The wound was sealed, but the silver in her blood pulsed strangely, glowing each time she touched him. Elias could feel her trembling through the thin layer of her armor. "You should not have done it," she whispered again, her voice weaker now. "Your medicine, it burns through me." He looked at her carefully. "But you are alive." She gave a faint, humorless smile. "Alive, yes, but not the same." They reached a passage hidden between two broken statues that looked like forgotten gods. Sarathia moved her fingers over strange symbols on the wall. They lit up beneath her touch, revealing a door that slid open with a deep sound like thunder underwater. Inside was darkness, but Elias could sense warmth coming from somewhere deep below. "This place," she said softly, "was once forbidden to us. My people sealed it long before the wars. They said it belonged to the first travelers of the stars." Elias frowned. "You mean humans?" She looked at him, startled. "That is not what we call them. In our records, they were simply called the first ones. Builders, destroyers. Vanished before we ever crossed the stars." He followed her deeper into the cavern, guided by the dim light on the walls. The tunnel opened into a massive chamber filled with tall pillars of glass-like crystal. In the center stood a black stone platform surrounded by faint blue mist. Strange carvings covered it, symbols that shifted when he tried to focus on them. Elias stepped closer. As soon as his hand brushed the surface, the entire chamber came alive. A soft hum filled the air, followed by a burst of light from the pillars. Sarathia jumped back, her weapon half raised. "What did you do?" "I just touched it," he said, stepping back in confusion. The carvings began to change, forming a language neither of them had seen before, until Elias realized he could read it. The words formed inside his mind like memories from a dream. "Welcome, descendant of the first seed." Sarathia's expression changed to one of fear. "It recognizes you." Elias turned to her. "How is that possible?" She shook her head. "Only relics of the old ones respond to their bloodlines. But that was millions of cycles ago. Your kind should not exist." The light grew brighter, casting long shadows across the chamber. The air around them started to pulse rhythmically like a heartbeat. Elias could feel it in his chest. "Whatever this place is," he said slowly, "it's not dead." Sarathia looked around, her eyes scanning the walls. "No, it is waiting." A sudden sound echoed through the tunnels, metal scraping, boots on stone. Sarathia's eyes widened. "They found us." She turned to Elias. "Hide." He shook his head. "They'll scan for both of us. We stay together." "Then you will die," she said. "Maybe," he answered, "but not yet." Before she could reply, he pulled out a small cube from his pocket. Human tech, centuries old, cracked and unreliable. He pressed the button and the air shimmered around them. A thin cloaking field activated, distorting light and masking heat signatures. Sarathia stared in disbelief. "That is impossible. That is human stealth technology. We thought it was lost." "Guess we both thought wrong," he said quietly. The alien soldiers entered the chamber, their armor glowing crimson. Their eyes scanned the space. Search the relic, one ordered. No one enters this sanctum without command approval. Elias and Sarathia stood perfectly still, hidden under the cloak. He could hear his own heartbeat. The soldiers spread out, their scanners sweeping the room. One of them walked right past Elias, inches away. Then from the far end of the room a faint voice echoed, mechanical and deep. It came from the black stone. Human presence confirmed. Initiating sequence, the soldiers froze. Their scanners went wild. What was that? One shouted. Light exploded from the ground, throwing them backward. The machine's core opened, revealing a column of shifting energy. Elias's body burned with a strange pull, like the light wanted him closer. Sarathia grabbed his arm. Do not move. It is calling you. He looked at her. Then what happens if I answer? You wake something that should never wake again. The floor began to shake, dust falling from the ceiling. The soldiers fired at the machine, but the blasts dissolved into the air. One screamed as light consumed him, leaving nothing behind. Sarathia pulled Elias behind a pillar. Your presence triggers it, she said, fear in her voice. This world, it remembers you. Elias looked at the glowing column. The voice called his name now, clearer, stronger, filled with purpose. Elias Grayson of Earth. Return the spark. He did not understand how it knew him. But one thing was certain. The planet was not just reacting to his touch. It was awakening because of it. Sarathia looked at him with both fear and awe. Your kind built this place, she whispered. And maybe you never truly left. Elias stared at the pulsing light as the chamber's hum grew louder, echoing like a heartbeat. Whatever secrets lay buried here were no longer buried. The planet had seen a human again, and it was beginning to remember. The ruins shuddered as the humming grew louder, sending ripples through the ground. Dust rained down from the ceiling, and the blue mist around the pillars brightened until it was blinding. Elias shielded his face while Sarathia pulled him back, her voice trembling. We have to go, now! But the machine would not stop calling. It pulsed with light that responded to Elias's heartbeat, following him like a shadow. Every time he tried to move away, the glow bent toward him, as if the structure itself refused to let him leave. Above them, explosions echoed. The Volari search ships had arrived. Their spotlights swept across the valley, casting long shadows through the cracks in the cavern roof. The ancient dust stirred as if the planet itself resented their presence. Sarathia glanced up, her jaw tightening. They are sealing the area. If they detect this energy, they will call for planetary cleansing. Elias frowned. You mean orbital strike? Yes, she said coldly. They will turn everything into glass. He checked the small scanner on his wrist. The signal from his shuttle's wreckage was still transmitting weakly. It was only a matter of time before it attracted more ships. If that happens, we are done, he muttered. The machine's voice grew fainter, like a whisper fading into static. Elias looked at the runes again. The language that had once formed in his mind began to rearrange itself into a pattern he did not recognize. He felt the weight of unseen eyes watching him from the walls, from the dust, from time itself. Sarathia placed a hand on his shoulder, snapping him back. We must move before they block the tunnels. They fled down a narrow passage lit by glowing fungi and fractured crystals. The walls pulsed faintly, alive with silent energy. Behind them, the heavy sound of boots drew closer. Volari soldiers closing in. Elias's lungs burned as they reached a steep drop. The path ahead split into two tunnels. Sarathia stopped, her instincts sharp. The left leads deeper underground, she said. The right leads to the surface, closer to the ships. Then the left, Elias said without hesitation. She hesitated, her eyes narrowing. If we go deeper, there may be no coming back. Elias looked behind them. The distant red glow of enemy flashlights was already visible. If we go up, we die now. She said nothing more and leaped into the left tunnel. He followed, landing hard on his knees as the floor tilted downward. The air grew colder the further they went. The tunnel finally opened into a vast underground chamber filled with broken machines, overgrown with vines that shimmered faintly in the dark. Elias walked to the nearest structure. It looked like a sarcophagus made of black glass. Inside it, a shape floated, humanoid but faintly glowing blue. What is this? He whispered. Sarathia approached carefully. A stasis field, she murmured. Ancient Volari design. No, older. These are not ours. She touched the surface and symbols appeared. Human letters faintly burned into the crystal. Elias leaned closer. It read, "Do not awaken what sleeps beneath." Before they could speak again, a voice echoed from above. "Sarathia of the Ninth Order," someone called. The sound was deep, commanding. "Surrender yourself in the human, or your dishonor will be written in blood." Sarathia's eyes widened. "It is Commander Valen. Friend of yours?" Elias asked quietly. "My commander," she said, her voice flat. "He will not hesitate to kill us both." Elias glanced around the chamber, looking for cover. "Then we make sure he does not get the chance." Sarathia gave a bitter smile. "You think you can fight him? He has burned worlds." "Then maybe it is time someone stopped him." Before she could reply, blinding beams cut through the entrance. Dozens of armored figures stormed in, weapons raised. Valen stood at their center, towering, his armor black and trimmed with crimson light. His face was hidden behind a mirrored mask. "Step away from the relic," Valen ordered. "It does not belong to you." Sarathia stepped forward, her voice cold but trembling. "You do not understand, Commander. This human is contamination," Valen interrupted. "His kind are forbidden by order of the Council. Their return would mean the end of our dominion." He pointed his weapon at Elias. "You should have died with your world." Elias felt a strange calm. "You cannot kill what your history already buried," he said quietly. "And maybe that is what scares you most." The chamber lights flickered as the ground vibrated again. The stasis pods began to glow. The machine's pulse from above grew louder, spreading through the ruins like a heartbeat returning to life. Sarathia looked at Elias, realization dawning. "The relic is defending you." Valen raised his arm to fire, but before he could pull the trigger, a surge of energy burst from the floor. It struck the soldiers first, throwing them against the walls. Weapons melted, armor cracked. Valen's mask shattered, revealing pale skin marked with black veins. Elias felt the same pull as before, stronger now. The light bent around him, forming patterns like veins of fire. The ground opened beneath the ancient sarcophagus. Inside, the figure began to move. "Elias," Sarathia shouted, reaching for him. "It is waking again." He stumbled back as the voice filled his mind, no longer mechanical but human. "You carry our memory, our seed. Do not fear what you were born to finish." Sarathia stared at him, her expression torn between fear and wonder. "It speaks to you," she whispered. "It knows your name." The ancient stasis pod cracked and light poured out in rivers. Valen's remaining soldiers fled in panic, shouting into their comms. Elias could barely stand as the energy surged around him, hot and alive, wrapping around him like armor made of light. Sarathia's voice reached him through the noise. "Elias, whatever you are doing, stop." He tried, but it was too late. The world above began to shake violently, rocks falling like rain. The machine's voice echoed through the planet itself. "Human lineage detected. Awakening sequence complete." Sarathia pulled him away just before the chamber exploded into light. The force hurled them through the tunnel, tumbling through debris and dust. When they stopped, everything behind them was gone. Only silence and faint blue sparks left where the ancient power had awakened. Elias opened his eyes, his breathing ragged. What just happened?" Sarathia looked back at the ruin, her face pale. "You woke something that was never meant to wake," she said softly. "And now, the galaxy will come for you." The silence that followed the explosion felt unreal. The ground still trembled faintly, and the air shimmered with blue mist, thick with static energy. Elias coughed and sat up, his ears ringing. Sarathia knelt beside him, her armor scorched and cracked. Every breath she took made a soft metallic sound. They had survived, but the ruins behind them were gone, swallowed by light and dust. The tunnel had collapsed, leaving only one way forward, deeper into the planet's heart. Sarathia pressed her palm against the wall, her voice faint. "That energy, it was not a weapon. It was a signal." Elias blinked, still trying to understand. "A signal to what?" Her eyes glowed dimly as she looked upward, toward the ceiling that shook with distant thunder, to whatever sleeps above the stars. They began walking slowly. The new passage was narrow, lined with black glass that reflected their images in distorted shapes. The deeper they went, the more Elias felt as though something ancient was watching them from every reflection. His footsteps echoed strangely, repeating a moment too late, as if someone or something walked beside them. He tried to shake off the feeling, but the pull in his chest grew stronger. The glow beneath his skin, the mark that appeared when the relic had reacted to him, still pulsed faintly, keeping rhythm with the strange hum of the planet. After what felt like hours, they reached a vast underground dome. The air was colder here but lighter. A soft blue light poured from the center where a transparent sphere floated above the ground. Inside it, swirling patterns of stars and galaxies moved like living things. Sarathia gasped. "This is impossible." Elias approached carefully. "What is it?" "It is memory," she said. "A record of creation. The first ones must have left it." She paused, then turned to him. "Your people." Elias stared at the sphere, his reflection twisting across its surface. "We never had technology like this," he said quietly. Sarathia shook her head. "Not you. The ones before you." Before he could ask more, the sphere flared. Light burst outward, and suddenly, they were surrounded by images not solid but vivid as dreams. They saw cities made of gold and glass, rising through clouds. Human figures walking beside other beings, aliens of 100 shapes living together under the light of twin suns. Voices filled the air, layered with songs and languages Elias could not understand but somehow felt he knew. Then the images changed. War, fire, planets breaking apart. Beings screaming in silence as the stars themselves dimmed. Sarathia gripped his arm. "They destroyed themselves," she whispered. "No," Elias said slowly. "They were destroyed by something else." The next image showed vast fleets, machines that looked alive, devouring light, feeding on it. The humans of that time sealed something inside a massive device, a dark sphere at the center of a dying system. The memory shifted again. A voice echoed through the chamber, soft but filled with sorrow. "We leave this record for our descendants. When the light returns, remember who you are. Remember what we did to protect the stars." The images faded and the sphere dimmed until it was only a faint glow again. Sarathia turned toward him, her expression unreadable. "Your kind did this," she said. "You built the dominion we fear. You were the ones who vanished, not us." Elias stared at his hands, his mind spinning. "No, we are not gods. We barely learned to travel between worlds." "The relic disagrees," she said quietly. "The planet recognized you. It is older than my empire. It carries your signature. You are connected to the first ones." Before he could respond, a deep vibration ran through the chamber. The ceiling cracked, and fragments of rock fell around them. A massive voice echoed through the air, mechanical but aware. "Energy sequence detected. Signal confirmed. Activating star memory protocol." The floor split open, revealing a glowing pool of liquid light beneath the sphere. Elias stumbled back as beams of energy reached upward, forming a spiral in the air. Stars appeared inside it, real stars, each flickering like a heartbeat. Sarathia stepped forward, staring in awe. "This is not a weapon," she whispered. "It is a map." Elias followed her gaze. The spiral formed into a pattern that he recognized instinctively. It was a map of the galaxy, but one section pulsed brighter than the rest, a single system near the edge. "Earth," he breathed. The voice spoke again. "Human origin site confirmed. Coordinates transmitting. Genetic signature accepted." Sarathia turned to him, her eyes wide. "It is calling your home." Elias felt his stomach twist. "But Earth is gone. It was destroyed centuries ago. Then what is it calling?" she asked softly. Before he could answer, a shadow fell across the chamber. A shape descended through the hole above, a ship, sleek and dark, bearing the mark of the Valari Dominion. Sarathia's face hardened. "They are here." The voice from the sphere pulsed louder. "Defense mode initiating." Energy flared across the walls. Elias felt a jolt of power surge through his veins again, the same light wrapping around him like armor. His vision blurred. For a moment, he saw symbols running across his hands, glowing the same blue as the relic. Sarathia watched in silence, fear and awe in her eyes. "Elias, you are becoming part of it." The ship above fired a pulse beam, shaking the chamber. The sphere cracked and light poured out, sweeping across the dome. Every wall lit up with the faces of long-dead humans, their voices overlapping into one final whisper that filled the air. "The stars remember us. And through you, they will remember again." Elias collapsed to his knees, his heartbeat syncing with the planet's rhythm. The relics, the ruins, even the air around them. It was all alive, and it was waiting for him to decide what came next. The world beneath them trembled like it was breathing again. The shattered sphere in the center of the chamber still glowed faintly, spilling rivers of light that wound across the floor like veins. Elias knelt, his hands pressed against the trembling ground, his body still flickering with strange blue patterns. His vision blurred between two realities, the ruined chamber before him, and flashes of something else, stars burning, ancient fleets drifting through void, voices whispering words too old to belong to living tongues. Sarathia crouched beside him, clutching his shoulder. "You have to stay conscious," she said urgently. "You are connected to it. Whatever it is using you as a link." Elias's voice was weak. "It is not using me. It is remembering through me." The air vibrated, humming with impossible energy. Overhead, the Velari ship descended through the broken ceiling, its engines roaring. Dozens of armored soldiers poured from it, their weapons drawn. Sarathia stood to face them, her breathing sharp and heavy. The commander at their front, the scarred and unmasked Valen, raised his weapon. "Sarathia of the Ninth Order, you have betrayed your command and defiled sacred ground. You will die beside the creature you protect." Sarathia's grip tightened on her blaster, but she did not raise it. "Commander," she said, her voice steady, "if you fire in this place, you will awaken what none of us can control." Valen's expression was cold. "It is already awake." He motioned for his soldiers to fire. But before the first shot could echo, the chamber shifted again. The streams of light on the ground surged upward, forming a wall of shimmering energy between the humans and the soldiers. The impact of the blaster bolts vanished into it, absorbed like rain into the sea. Elias rose slowly, his body still faintly glowing. The voice returned, soft now, almost kind. "We were not gods," it whispered through the air. "We were builders and destroyers. We left the galaxy to protect it from ourselves. If you have returned, the cycle begins again." The soldiers froze, looking around as if they too heard the whisper. Some fell to their knees in panic. Valen snarled, shouting over the noise, "This is an illusion!" Sarathia stepped forward, her voice firm. "It is not an illusion. It is truth. The first ones were human. This world is one of their creations. They left it sleeping until now." Valen's glare shifted toward Elias. "Then we end their bloodline." He raised his weapon again, but the floor beneath him cracked open. The energy burst upward, consuming the weapon and tearing through the chamber. The blast didn't kill anyone. It simply stopped them, suspending them in blue light like frozen statues. Sarathia watched in awe as the glow spread wider, reaching up through the planet's crust. Outside, the clouds parted, revealing the stars above. Something massive moved across the sky, an enormous shape rising from beneath the surface. Elias looked up, dazed. It is a ship, and it was, a colossal construct larger than any known vessel, lifting itself from the crust of the world. It was not metal, but crystal and light, its surface engraved with ancient runes that pulsed in rhythm with Elias's heartbeat. The chamber around them cracked and fell away, but the energy shield held, carrying them upward as the planet itself opened. They rose into the night sky on a platform of light, staring as the buried ship fully emerged. The ancient vessel hung in the air, silent and alive. Sarathia's voice trembled. "It has been here for ages. A relic from the first ones." The ship spoke, not with words, but through the air itself. Human signal restored. Command chain active. Awaiting directive. Elias looked around helplessly. "I don't know what to say to it," the voice answered anyway. "You already have. Your pulse carries the key. Your intent is the command." He felt a weight settle inside his chest. His mind was full of memories that were not his own, of ancient battles, cities built in orbit around stars, and a moment long ago when the first ones chose to vanish to save what remained of life. Valen's soldiers, freed from the stasis field, began to retreat. Their ships hovered uncertainly above, weapons lowering. Sarathia turned to them and shouted, "Look at what you are fighting. This is not an enemy, it is history returning." No one fired. Even Valen hesitated, his face twisted with confusion and fear. Elias stepped forward onto the surface of the glowing ship. The light beneath his feet shifted, following him. He placed his hand on the hull. "If you can hear me," he said softly, "I do not want war. I just want peace." The sky answered with silence. Then a pulse of light spread outward from the ship, shooting into the stars. Across the horizon, every Velari vessel froze, their weapons powered down. Their communication signals filled with static, and then, one by one, a symbol appeared on their screens, the mark of the first ones. Sarathia stared upward, tears reflecting the light. "You changed everything," she said. "Every empire, every world, they will see this signal. They will know you exist." Elias looked down at his glowing hands. "It was never about me," he said quietly. "It was about remembering who we were." The massive ship began to rise higher, its light spreading like dawn. Across the galaxy, ancient ruins awakened, machines humming to life, forgotten worlds lighting up as if responding to the call. Valen dropped to his knees, his voice hollow. "You have doomed us all." Sarathia shook her head. "No, Commander. He may have saved us." Elias turned to her, the light in his eyes slowly fading. "This signal will bring others," he said. "Not just humans, whatever survived them. The galaxy will change."